Hi, I'm Dr. Alison Kole, sleep medicine specialist and bona fide chronic insomniac. Welcome to the Sleep is My Waking Passion podcast. Remember, knowledge is empowerment, and if applied correctly, it can help you biohack your way to a better night of sleep, just like I did. This is going to be season 4 of the Sleep is My Waking Passion podcast. I am so excited. I have Rachel Nesmith with me. She is also known as the Sleepy American. Rachel, you are one of the OG patient voices for Project Sleep. You live not only with type 1 narcolepsy, but you had also shared in the Sleeping Around podcast, which was fantastic, guys. I'm just hoping to share with you a bit and the eloquence with which Dr. Anne Marie Morse spoke on the Sleeping Around podcast. I'm probably going to be doing somewhat of a disservice, but I'm going to do my best to share with you some new insights. Do great. But Rachel also you're a songwriter. You have been also living with basically autism spectrum. And you do have a touch of sleep apnea. And I think that's a really unique angle.
I have more than a touch of sleep apnea.
More than a touch of sleep apnea. We're going to get into that.
Okay.
And just the fact that you are living with all of these conditions, and especially autism already having some stigma, then having to deal with the narcolepsy on top of it, and then being the human that you are, really trying to make an impact and share your story to help the world understand that we're all different people, kind of trying to make it through, and we all have our crosses to bear, if you will, to use that analogy. And your experience is deeply unique, but also, though, there are other people just like you that are struggling, and the fact that you are so courageous to share that story. Just welcome. I am so excited that you actually reached out to me. I'd been following you on social, and you actually reached out to me. I was like, oh my goodness, she might want to talk to me. I'm so excited. Ooh, okay.
No, I did want to talk to you. That's why I reached out. I see you every day shining on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is the best place to connect with other physicians. It's the only way you can prove who you are beyond the shadow of a doubt. So it weeds out a lot of people that might not be themselves online. So you can trust each other more.
That's really powerful, because I would absolutely agree with you. And to be honest with you, that seems to be where a lot of people who are really interested and truly interested in the disease space, not interested in it in some, comedic or superficial way, are located. So it's been a pleasure to actually grow, a LinkedIn following and make a lot of connections, such as with yourself.
Thank you. I agree. I mean, it's there's a lot of misinformation, and a lot of people with narcolepsy don't feel like they have enough of a platform on podcasts. And I am working on a podcast that's with a few other persons with narcolepsy. We're developing the concept for it and planning it out, and hopefully we can get that started, where we are willing to interview. It's going to be like a politically incorrect, but about sleep. No holds
I love
barred.
that.
Yeah.
And you have such creative ways of expressing yourself.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We just had I live in Dallas, so it's amazing. We just saw the solar eclipse, and I just see, life throws you lemons. Sometimes you got to make that lemonade.
Preach. We have all been through so much. And I know on the Sleeping Around podcast, you had mentioned when you first kind of knew something was up, and that you had started with a lot of what we call EDS, or excessive daytime sleepiness.
Yes.
And then things really around 9/11 with the stress of that event that occurred for all of us, that was really profound for you. But taking a step back from that, there's a couple observations I made. One, you were basically a college kid, but you were so smart that you've kind of figured it out early on. A lot of people have to go decades sometimes before they really get a diagnosis, yet you put all the pieces of the puzzle together. Having lived with autism spectrum, Do you think that played a role in your ability to sort of be able to process all of these little nuanced things and figure it out?
The way that I experienced it was that I didn't know I had autism until like a few years ago.
Oh,
I have
wow.
it. Yeah, I have it. I was always like the hyper focusing hyper I would study about, it took me about 3 times as long as other students, but I would get straight A's, but I would have to study so much, so hard, and I was pushing myself so hard in college because to me, like, it was the end of the world to not get at least a B. For me, I really wanted to get A's everywhere. And so in school, I was like the hyper focusing. I was afraid of upsetting any authority figures. My daughter Savannah is having a very hard time with autism, and that's how I came to realize, hey, I thought that if you had autism, that you wouldn't be able to speak or write or even get good grades, or that your IQ can't be 129 and be mentally disabled. But now I realized I had the ADD and the autism. So my daughter has it, my sister has it, my nephew have it, and I have familial connections on my mother's side with narcolepsy.
Wow.
My cousin, she wants to remain anonymous because she doesn't like to talk about the narcolepsy. But I'm glad that I was there before she became disabled and had to rearrange her life. And I think, I see the greatness that persons with narcolepsy can push themselves to do, and creatively in a world of our own. That's why it's so prophetic and so cathartic
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
meet up with other persons with narcolepsy. Online, in person is best, but it's like an instant, like your besties. It's like already what it's like. Like I say, like nobody else really knows about jingle mingle, feel the cataplexy tingle feels like, to be wanting to celebrate Christmas with your family, and then going into status cataplecticus and feeling it's like your whole body goes to sleep because it's pins and needles all over, like when your legs get circulation. And it's hard to imagine what it's like to feel that uneasy, queasy feeling right before you know you're gonna fall down. And you're just anticipating for the fall and waiting for the pain to happen. And you know it's gonna happen. And the only thing you can do is maybe weight yourself one way to another to choose the direction of your fall.
Wow. When you talk
Yeah.
about pain, is it the pain that's associated with the fact that you can't control it, so now you're falling on the ground and
Yeah,
that causes the
like the
pain, or is
physical
the
pains.
actual, or is
That
there physical pain associated with the
cataplexy is
cataplexy?
Cataplexy is not itself painful other than the
Got it.
pins and needles. But like bracing yourself for the fall. It definitely develops your character. But I think the most important thing is changing attitudes about sleep, about what narcolepsy is, because there's not as much of a conversation as including things beyond the comedic relief. And there are funny stories about narcolepsy that don't minimize the disorder, like my pomegranate story. That
Hmm.
was real, and it is funny, but it's more like people are laughing with us and not at us is what we prefer. And when society says, the stigma says that you're lazy, you're drunk. One time I got denied a virgin pina colada because they said I was too drunk. And I was like,
Oh,
I'm not
goodness.
drunk, and I ordered a virgin pina colada. You can see the sleepiness as the day wears on, And sometimes when we're having a good time, it might even be some cataplexy induced. I've even experienced, like with my daughter having so much trouble, her school, they essentially had it in their mind that I was a neglectful parent. They had it in their mind that I, like they said, is that really sustainable? And that did hurt. I'm the one who's going with her to counseling because my child is she acts up with her autism. She wasn't quiet and obedient like me, and she is pretty defiant. So if y'all think y'all are exhausted, how do you think I feel? I'm doing this with narcolepsy. I'm the one who put the locks on all the doors. I'm the one that says absolutely no screen time. That doesn't make me less of a parent. I think that makes me an even more understanding parent because I myself have autism, and I understand that there's a disconnect in between expressing how we feel, conveying it to others, and developing better people skills. But it's just a different operating system. Now, do I think there's a link in between narcolepsy and neurodivergency? Absolutely. Most people with narcolepsy are probably somewhere on the high functioning scale. I see that a lot, and a lot of people say they're neurodivergent as well, meaning like the ADD.
Mm-hmm.
My main goal is to put stigma to bed, and to so that we can increase the public knowledge of what is this disorder really like. Is it really like this one snap and you go flat? No, not typically. Whenever we feel a little sleepy or uneasy, I would like for the world to know that it's not one snap and splat. I mean, it can't be with it can be with the cataplexy, one snap, laugh and snap, but the sleepiness, the EDS sleep attacks are not instantaneous. A lot of times people will get the sleep attacks and the cataplexy confused or mingle it together. My father thought that pomegranate was a sleep attack triggered by laughter, and I was trying to tell him, no, I can hear everything, and that's why he never disbelieved me again after I said, Dad, the secret word is pomegranate, or is forbidden fruit. And he never disbelieved me then. But if we continue to have where the public thinks that narcolepsy is fairy tale mathland, we have to say, no, it's somewhere like Inception, and it meets Nightmare on Elm Street. I call it Nightmare on REM sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, folks, I have done prior episodes on narcolepsy, and Rachel has really been elaborating on some of the sort of, quote, not that they're lesser known, but more difficult to describe symptoms that patients have. So often the universal symptom is excessive daytime sleepiness. The less universal symptom is what she's describing, which is that you really lose muscle tone, and it's often triggered by really intense emotions. And do you want to share the pomegranate story? I know you shared on the Sleeping Around podcast, but I think it would be great to share here because it really gives an example of the assumption that someone is, oh, well, they're really sleepy and they have narcolepsy, so they just went to sleep. But rather, it wasn't that at all. It sort of mimics that, but you are truly aware of what's happening.
Yes. Well, I was at my grandparents in 2002. My great uncle had just passed away, and we were at his wake. And my sister and my brother-in-law we were all laughing. It was so funny. I had been on Impramamine and Provigil by that time, but the Impramamine was not cutting it anymore. One laugh, and I was like, in cataplexy, or more probably status cataplecticus, for about 30 minutes. And I couldn't move, and the way my parents were freaking out, I found it really, I found it personally funny because they were thinking, oh gosh, is she dead? What's happening? My poor grandma. And my dad, he never believed me that I could hear, that he thought the sleep attack and cataplexy were the same thing. And so he said, Rachel, I don't think you can hear me, but if you can, the secret word is pomegranate. And when I was finally able to move about 20 minutes after that, I said, Dad, the secret word is forbidden fruit. And I fell down again. So he never, ever disbelieved me after that.
Wow. That's such a
Yeah.
great story. Because it's so rare for us, even in training.
Right.
I think we had one patient who would be very patient and wait, and he would have these attacks, and it was to the point where, like, if you're in the hospital, we were in a county facility, so this is in California where we were, and the population's largely Hispanic, so there's not a great language communication often, and routinely he would have these episodes of cataplexy. And one time it was actually in our lab, and we were able to just say, okay, he's having cataplexy, let's let him relax and let's just give him time. And he was fine. But when the rest of the staff was there, like, oh my goodness, are we gonna have to call a code? Like, are we gonna have to? And this would happen to him routinely when he would be in the hospital, because it was like constantly, and people were like, and you had pointed out too, sometimes people are like, are you faking it? Is this not even real?
Or are you
again,
on
getting
drugs?
to that
stigma. That's why when you have really bad cataplexy and you don't know what you have, and that's why you need to spread awareness, because only board certified sleep doctors, and only a few of those truly understand from the patient perspective, how all these barriers to care confound our situation. And without proper support system, I feel that I am capable to do. I have endless potential, but there has to be some kind of supports and understanding.
And you're bringing up actually an interesting point, thinking back to that poor gentleman. He would come to our clinic routinely, and you can imagine this is a person who's uninsured, and just trying to make it, and I think really relying on family members and friends because he couldn't work. And now there's a language barrier on top of all this. And you can imagine what kind of medications are available when you are uninsured and you're a county patient. It would be some form of a limited stimulant. And it was like, okay, well, we're allowed to get this or pay for this. But thinking about, an oxybate kind of medication, and that was out and about at the time of my training, that was like not even an option. It was like so frustrating, even as a provider, that I wouldn't be able to actually get him medication that I thought would help him, just because it wasn't allowing for that to happen. There was that barrier of finances, which was really huge.
I've been there before. I've been there. I was on Medicaid and on SSI before I got remarried. And it was a crazy maze. And I went to Dr. Philip Becker and Patty Lopez. She was his care coordinator. She's essentially like a special kind of nurse, and she's wonderful. They always went above and beyond to try to get me on the assistance programs. And I was sad when Dr. Becker retired. It's been a long, painful journey, but I finally found a doctor that's amazing, Dr. Ann Morse. We met on TikTok. I had a former sleep doctor. He got rid of me suddenly, and I don't want to get into details because it was very traumatic. But essentially, I was without care and had to go get re-diagnosed at the Mayo Clinic, and that insurance didn't cover that. Well, they covered 10%, so my parents emptied out their savings to get me completely re-diagnosed.
Wow.
It was about $19,000 in total. Those things really wear on my conscience, like, I feel bad about. But I was like stuck in status cataplecticus most of the day for a couple months because I was too complicated for most of the doctors around Dallas. But I did go to the Mayo Clinic, and that's where I got diagnosed with I had a pretty profound, it's called treatment-induced central sleep apnea. That's why the CPAP was not working and my oxygen would dip. And so, yeah, part of it was paying about $4,000 for an ASV machine so that I could breathe and more safely the oxybate therapy. But
Yes. So I'm going to just share with the audience. So
okay.
When you have some form of sleep apnea, obstructive sleep apnea is very common. And unfortunately, what happens is often when you feel really super tired, it's always attributed to, oh, you have obstructive sleep apnea. And sometimes the narcolepsy component goes by the wayside. But if we know that you have obstructive sleep apnea and you are using what Rachel's describing, which is a CPAP machine, you're using air to open up the airway, it can be great. There are some folks, however, that once we open up the airway and they're breathing, then their brain kind of gets confused about where their carbon dioxide levels are. And they could actually have what we call treatment-emergent central sleep apnea, which basically means your brain forgets to breathe.
Yeah.
And then the oxybate therapy can kind of exacerbate even the obstruction portion of it and may contribute to the centrals because it really is, it's going into more of a deeper sleep, which is why people feel, it kind of consolidates your sleep at night, which is why people with narcolepsy tend to feel a bit better during the day. It's not perfect, but they are better on that medication. But the flip side is it has a tendency to potentially make sleep apnea issues a bit worse. And so what I'm hearing from you is that some people over time, the treatment-emergent central sleep apnea will disappear, but there are times, and especially if you're adding a medication on top of it, which may kind of exacerbate everything, where CPAP's just going to be insufficient. So what you're describing is that you actually went on auto-servo ventilation, if I'm saying that correctly.
You did.
This ASV machine is a really unique machine. It's very important that someone have a strong heart to go on this machine. We've looked at data in patients who had weak hearts thinking they were doing something good for them, and it turns out not so much with this machine. But if you have a strong, good, strong functioning heart, then it's a neat machine because when you're having an obstruction, it's going to adjust pressure and it's going to keep that airway open. But it also is smart enough to know when you've stopped breathing and it'll breathe for you. So it's a very special machine. You are correct. It is considerably more expensive than a CPAP. So
it is.
Or an example of how when you need medication to help you function, we've got to be mindful of how those side effects of those medications may impact other conditions like your sleep apnea. So thank you for sharing. That's a really important point.
My life was with untreated narcolepsy, like for those, I want to say from like the end of February last year to June. I didn't have a sleep doctor, and I was left like high and dry. I tried 4 to 10 different sleep specialists in my area. And they're like, you're too complex, or we can't confirm your diagnosis of narcolepsy without this. And my former doctor was doing everything in his power to get rid of me. And he did it, but it cost me a greatly human cost. I would be in status cataplecticus most of the day. And I'm going to tell you right off there, I didn't want to live like that. I didn't like living in a body that I didn't have free movement in. That if I wanted to talk, my speech would be really slurred. But without that Xywav, I cannot function. And I try to be a very good patient because it is very important. It's a very heavy burden of trying to maintain your ability to even be like a functioning person, like a mom, a wife, a daughter. I should be further in life. I should have my own career. I should be able to support my family. But I am not. I have to have help from my family, and the support is so vital, because I feel like I can be a worthwhile human being and that I'm worthy of being alive. However, it can be a heavy burden of trying to maintain that self-esteem and self-confidence, because the narcolepsy in society keep on putting us in a rock and a hard place, and we deal with a lot of inadequacy, and the mental health toll can be quite heavy. And when we do have a good sleep doctor, it makes all the difference in the world. And I would do almost anything for Dr. Moore. She said, I'm coming to Dallas. We're going to do this. And I was like, I'm there.
Wow. Can you hold on for 1 second?
Oh,
I'm
no
sorry.
problem.
My mom is trying to flag me. And now a quick break. But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Struggling with sleep? Dr. Kole is here to help. Whether you need a comprehensive sleeping coach program, suspect you have sleep apnea, or simply seek a second opinion, she's available for consultations in New Jersey, New York, California, and Georgia, with more states coming soon. Schedule your free 15-minute consultation today to find out which visit is right for you at asktosleepmd.com and start your journey to better sleep with a trusted physician.
If you are liking this podcast, if you're finding it educational, if you are feeling more empowered to go to your doctor with any sleep issues that you might be having to address them, please, please, please lend your support. Make sure that you are liking, following, subscribing. I am available on YouTube. I'm also on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. The website has launched. So we have AskTheSleepMD.com to be your free educational resource. We've added many new blog posts filled with juicy information. If you would like to support the podcast, we now have a way for you to donate. This is a labor of love. I truly enjoy what I am doing. It would be inspiring and truly helpful if you wouldn't mind even so much as donating $1 to keep this podcast going, particularly if you really find this free education a good platform for you and a good resource for you. I also have affiliate links for products that I'm a proponent of, such as Quiet Mind. So please check out the website, sign up, and you will get the latest news, the latest blogs, some sleep tips, and just have a great day and keep listening. Okay, guys, sleep well.
This is wild, so I am totally going to share this with the audience. So Rachel, by the way, Anne-Marie Morse is freaking awesome. I've met her, and I super fangirl her, and of course she would be the perfect doctor for you, and of course she'd figure out a way. Thank you, my love. Thank you. Thanks, Lil. And so I'm cracking up because literally as we were chit-chatting, we're in this like deep conversation. My mom's like, you have to come out and see the solar eclipse. It's not going to be. And
that's amazing.
My girls came home with glasses and you saw it. And I got to tell you, it was like so cool to see that. So this is such a wild ride to have the opportunity to speak with you and then also see a solar eclipse. And we paused taping for a second so I could run out and do that. And Rachel was a really good sport. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I really do.
Of course. I wouldn't want you to miss it for the world. My husband is like, get out here. You got to see it. And I'm like, I have a meeting in 15 minutes. And then I took it real quick. And I did see it at its full glory. I wish I had a better camera, but the iPhone camera had to do.
Oh my goodness. Wow. What a great experience.
Yes.
And I hope it's a good omen to teach everyone. That's what we're trying to do today is say, listen, you made some really amazing points. Like I want to point out, number one, it is incredibly difficult. There are 7,500 sleep physicians in the entire United States. So if you're estimating even common sleep disorders, we're looking on the order of 50 to 70 million people are estimated to have some sort of a chronic sleep disorder. That number for narcolepsy is even lower. And the number of sleep specialists, as you pointed out, who are really well versed in narcolepsy, that is also lower. I can say that I've learned so much in this process. I have had treated narcolepsy patients, I've treated idiopathic hypersomnia patients, and I really felt confident. I knew what I was doing. Now I know that confidence, I'm even more confident, meaning I actually was a little too confident, if I could admit that, because I was like, okay, I kind of get, the medications and I understand that. And I did my sleep fellowship and I really feel well versed in this. And then in speaking to you and speaking to Julie Flygare, and speaking to people within the community, I realized I am really quite clueless about all of the quality of life things. And I think many patients are like, oh, Dr. Kole's helped me. I started Xyrem or Xywav. I'm feeling better. This is okay. But really, there are some serious other issues like, oh, I've lost some weight because the medication tastes like crap and my appetite's not what it used to be, but I feel better. So I'm going to kind of downplay that, or I'm not going to say so much about that. And I had no idea really the deep burden that's associated with trying to make it work when you have a child who also struggles with, autism spectrum. That's a whole nother flavor of difficulty there. Yeah. So I do want to push back a little bit on something that you said, because I think it's important. What I hear you say, and I hope one day you don't feel that you need to say it this way. I hear you say, I should be the breadwinner. I should be able to do this. I should be. And I push back a little bit because I'm going to encourage you to take a step back, think of what you've accomplished so far. I want you, and I wish for you, for a really positive mindset, because I think that helps so much. You are now with the right provider who, as research continues, as things improve, she talks about on the Sleeping Around podcast, Dr. Ann mentions that patient journey and that patient journey to wellness. And unfortunately, yours is a much slower journey because we don't have that secret sauce right now. We've got a lot more magic than we did even a decade ago. And I want to encourage you to say, I know one day I can do this. Because when you say I should, I feel like you're judging yourself, and I don't want you to judge yourself. If you're going to judge yourself on the accomplishments that you are remarried. You are taking care of your child. You are showing up. You went to what lengths to find the right provider for you. Now, I don't wish that you had to do that, but the fact that you were able to accomplish that is because of your will, your drive. Your diagnosis, the time to diagnosis for you was much shorter because you're that smart and you put all those pieces together. So that's my only pushback for you, because I've done that myself. And I think a lot of us do that, where we go, I should be at this level and I should have accomplished that. And I should, all the shoulds. And in the end, it just spins us in this. I'm all about trying to switch my mindset. And so I encourage other people as much as you can. Maybe I'm lying to myself. I don't really care. But, if I take away that word should, I feel like I can celebrate more of the victories. And then when I celebrate the little victories, that leads me to be like, okay, I'm bringing more positive in, and I'm more hopeful that we are going to reach the endpoint. I'm really excited for some of these. I know they're early phase trials with some of the companies that are out there looking at like orexin 2 agonists and things like that. There's more in the pipeline coming down.
I know. It's very exciting.
Crossing my fingers it's going to work.
I mean, my narcolepsy was so complex that when I went to the Mayo Clinic, I'm like, let's do the spinal tap so we can prove once and for all that it is narcolepsy with cataplexy. And I did do that, and it came back not detectable. There was no hypercretin. And one of the shirts or slogans I made years ago was called a shirt saying straight out of hypercretin. And it's like I found out I really am.
Yes. So what she's referring to, guys, is that when you truly have her degree of narcolepsy, One of the neurotransmitters in our brain, hypocretin, also referred to as orexin, it literally gets depleted. And your levels, I remember Dr. Ann speaking about this, were it's like she has none. And we may have 400, 500 picograms per deciliter, or I'm probably saying it wrong, but something like that. But we have a much higher level in quote normal. And then sometimes you can have ones that are in the 200 range, but yours was exceptionally low, which is in particular why I think your symptoms are as profound as they are.
For me, it was an expensive relief to know that I'll never have to go through that again, because I would, without Xywav and clomipramine, I would just like lay in bed staring at the ceiling, going in and out of hypnagogia, meaning tons of sleep paralysis with hypnagogic hallucinations almost all night, every night. And the sleep is not restorative. It basically makes you really not like being alive. It's the world. It's stigma. It's the world that puts these thoughts of, I should be able to. It's the voice of stigma that sometimes gets to us. And you're like, well, society says this about me, therefore that. And that's part of why I wanted to be Sleepy American Superhero, because I think that taking all of these experiences and overcoming them enhances your character, as well as you have to. I say that narcolepsy for me is like, can you imagine having your transmission just completely shot out? And that would be like the part of the hypothalamus that hypocretin neurons are at. And when you take it into the shop and they're like, they can't replace it. There's no way to transplant parts of the hypothalamus from one person to another. Therefore, getting that engine replaced is no longer an option. So therefore,
but you're stuck with the same body. You can't get rid of
right.
that.
And you just have to. And then society is like, why are you going so slow? What's your problem? And it's like, I'm trying to push my car uphill and by my bare hands with no engine. And I really enjoy other people with narcolepsy not feeling alone with my lyrics that I write. It's very important to me to put out there a realistic depiction of narcolepsy that not only educates people with the condition or might think they have the condition, but also people that don't have it, that are learning about it. And they're like, I never thought of that. Or nobody laughs at me anymore when I say I have narcolepsy. And they're like, what is that like? And I think that's because we have really put stigma to bed since the truth. That's when they laughed at us during Deuce Bigalow. And when we can change pop culture, we change people's opinions, open their minds, go, well, maybe I was wrong about that. Narcolepsy sounds more scary. Sleep paralysis, I've had that before. Is the people, a third of the population experiences that at least once in their lifetime. So if we can bring those points where the symptoms can inspire knowledge and inspire people to see, transform the way people stereotype narcolepsy. And that's what I do.
One of the other things that I have learned on this journey, again, from you, from Julie, from Claire Wilds-Wright, who I had an opportunity to interview, I did not realize the resources that are available literally from patients or patient caregivers who have created organizations like the Hypersomnia Foundation, Project Sleep, Wake Up Narcolepsy. That really was something that nobody really had ever enlightened me on until I just sort of decided to go about this journey and decide I'm going to stick my head above the typical palm crit sleep sand and go, oh, what else is going on in the world? And this is a true story. This is how much you and other narcolepsy patients have inspired me. I actually saw someone who had idiopathic hypersomnia, actually spoke with her, and then I actually had a contact from an old medical school friend whose wife was having some challenges. And when I spoke with them, I was actually able to say, listen, there's a community out there for you to talk to. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that as a clinician, that I can sit there and say, you're not
Absolutely.
alone, and nobody's going to get it the way you do and the way other people who share your medical condition do.
Yes.
Please take advantage of these resources. That was never in my vocabulary. I would
Right.
talk about medications. I would talk about the importance of polypharmacy often for folks that have really complex cases such as yourself, and the fact that you might need more than one medication. And this is really, as far as we know, lifetime. We haven't figured out a magical way to basically erase it. So there are going to be
Yeah.
symptom management issues that do occur moving forward, really for the lifetime as far as we can see right now.
Yeah.
And being able to just add that other layer besides just the medical jargon, and I'm here for you medically, but to say, no, you have these resources available to you. What you are doing is so profoundly huge. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show,
Oh,
for
thank you.
sharing your wisdom with everyone, for destigmatizing. And this is, I think autism is headed there too, where we're
Yeah.
starting to learn more and more about it. You've even shared like, oh, I thought it was one way, and now I figured, oh, I
Right.
have it. And there's higher functioning and less functioning and everywhere in between. And to know that we are moving ahead in society as a culture, I think is so huge. Do you want to say some final words? That's what I'm going to end with, because I want it to be a rah to let people know.
Well, thank you.
There's a long way we have to go, but the more we talk about it, the more we, quote, normalize it. Because basically what I've come to discover is the longer you're on the planet, abnormal is normal. This whole concept of normal is some weird artificial societal construct. There was a very interesting interview that Dax Shepard did on his podcast, where he talked to somebody who has neurodivergence, and she's a PhD, and she talked all about how many neurodivergent there's so many out there. There's like over 70 different types now, and in the end you go, okay, we're labeling everything, but we're kind of all special and unique in our own way, and we've been too much involved in this like construct that we all have to fit into some perfect little box. And none
we
of us
never
do.
will. And that's how God created us, because he wanted there to be great variety. And he didn't want to be bored. It is a great thing. I mean, the way I'm able to express my mind through my lens has been greatly enhanced, like, by these organizations that have been there for me since, like, Narcolepsy Network since 2000, and Project Sleep and Wake Up Narcolepsy and Hypersomnia Foundation. All of them are resources there, and there are people like myself that I would consider myself a narcolepsy veteran, because I had done the hard things. I have had the very high risk pregnancy. I have had the what is it like to date with narcolepsy when you can't drive? How in the world do you go about getting remarried? And I did that on plentyoffish.com. My husband found me, and sometimes you got to take a risk, because my life would be much less sweet without him. And it was like the best first date ever. It still hasn't ended.
Isn't that the best, when you really find someone that you connect with, who accepts you?
Absolutely.
Like all of you. You don't have to put on a face. You're not dating forever. You're just being yourself. The good, the bad, the ugly. We all have got those little sides to us.
Early on in the relationship, he was wanting to break it off because he was stating the narcolepsy as a potential deal breaker. And I told him, you know what, that is so dumb, because I'm everything you want in a woman. I just happen to have the sleeping disorder. And you know what? It would make me a better, more caring girlfriend, not less than. And then he said, well, I guess you're right, because I have sleep apnea, and I'm supposed to use this machine, but you probably don't think that's very sexy. And I said, you know what? Breathing is sexy. Breathing is sexy. Wear your CPAP. I can't believe you're going to give me a hard time. But you knew at the same time that you had the second most, one of the most disabling sleep disorder. So I think it made him feel good, because like it was his ex that had recently broke up with him, she shamed him. She shamed him about using the CPAP, and that's why he said, "You probably don't think it's sexy and wouldn't want me to wear it at night." And to me, that says that they don't care about you. If they cannot be there for your care, and something so simple as a CPAP, it's important to find people that support you. I could not do it without my family, my parents, my dad, and my mother-in-law is awesome, and I'm just try to do my best every day, by my family and by my peers, and I'm just really excited that you have given me this chance to get my message out. That my role in music and songwriting is making an impact on other people with narcolepsy and people who don't have it. And like I say, I'm paralyzed by dreams and I'm thirsty for sleep. Narco-wreck me narcolepsy. And it was just like one laugh and splat. At the time, I really felt this Dr. Torment's patient like a lab rat. My bed is my jail cell. No one will pay my bill. But I love that song the most that I've ever written, Narco-wreck me narcolepsy, because it doesn't make fun of the disorder, but it also points out why the symptoms and the struggle is real. It makes all the difference in the world if you have a caring, knowledgeable provider. But I understand there are barriers to care everywhere. Trying to find a sleep specialist that would accept Medicaid is impossible, especially a sleep specialist that just isn't a pulmonologist and only does the CPAP, because that's not going to work for us with narcolepsy.
No, it is not.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Rachel.
you.
This
Thank
has been
you.
so fun.
You're
Seriously.
awesome. I mean, sleep is my living passion, like you say. Yeah, it is. And I like the guitars in the back. Do you play?
I do. I used to play classical. My
Wow.
classical back there has a busted string because I
That's
took it out. I mean, I've
amazing.
had it stored forever. The strings are too old. But the rock guitar, that has been my new thing. When I was younger, having an Asian
Wow.
mom, she wanted me to play. People of Asian moms kind of know. They want you to definitely play classical. And I did do that. And then when I, made this transition out of a busy sort of traditional medical practice, I had time for myself. And I said, the
That's
one thing I've always
awesome.
wanted to do is learn how to play rock songs. So that's what I do. I play rock
That's
songs
amazing.
on this guitar
Yeah.
my dad got me years ago, and it reminds me of him. He passed, but right before the pandemic. But I
I'm
look at
so
that guitar
sorry.
and,
My dad also is a guitarist, and I was raised around music, but it's a great way to deal with the disorder, and it's something that fires me up and gives me joy, and that's sometimes it's hard to find joy, but
I so understand that. I really do. So keep smiling, please.
I will.
All right. Thank you.
Disclaimer. The statements made on this podcast have not been evaluated by the U.S. Food or Drug Administration. They are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. The information provided by this podcast should not be used as individual medical advice. While I am a practicing sleep provider, I am not your sleep provider. You should always consult with your personal healthcare provider for individual recommendations and treatment.